boy, are you guys in for a special treat today. The collector spotlight is on Jeff Williams, and man, does he have some stories to tell and some books to show. These are my absolute favorite videos to make. It's a labor of love because there's way more work that goes into these videos and they have way less views, but it's just, I leave them just flying high, just connecting with members of the community and getting more background and just rich stories about this hobby. It's truly rewarding, and I'm super honored to be able to do it. Super excited to have Jeff, and for you guys to get to meet Jeff, who never does interviews. And he reached out to me, and he just has so much to share. He's been collecting since the early 60s. He's connected with some of the most influential people in the hobby, and I think I might have blew it. I go into these things with no agenda. I have no notes or anything. We're just sharing stories, and I feel like I may have dropped the ball on this one, that maybe there's some better questions I could have asked or something. So if you're watching this video and you think of something that you would like to ask Jeff, or that would be a great way to just get him to open up with the treasure trove of stuff that he's just has as normal memories. Like his normal memories of collecting is like stuff that will just have us at the edge of our seats. And so it takes a real skilled interviewer to pull that kind of stuff out. And I'm not a skilled interviewer. I'm just a guy with a YouTube channel. So leave a comment down below. I would love to have Jeff back on and just dig a little bit deeper. And if you want to share your story and come on the show, reach out to me. I have a list, a spreadsheet that I'm keeping of people with their contact information. I reached out to a bunch of people to try to add to this one. It's really hard to make things line up and connect. And so just bear with me. You know, I am keeping a spreadsheet, and I'm trying to get to everyone as quickly and as efficiently as possible. So shoot me an email at brycecomics@gmail.com if you want to do that. And also, if you subscribe to the channel, comment on this video and like this video, you're entered to win a free slab. We're also always buying collections. So if you're interested in selling your collection, just shoot an email to brycecomics@gmail.com. We offer fast, fair prices and get you paid quick. I could do really good on grails and stuff. Like I truly do think that I rival like heritage auctions. If you have a big boy book, I truly think that I can get you more money faster in a lot of situations for huge books. For run-of-the-mill, more common stuff, I usually offer around 60%. But for those grails, I can do like between 75 and 90% for some grails. So if you're interested in selling, reach out. Also, I am on the tail end of a cold, you guys. So if you see me pawing at my face or anything like that, that explains that. Without further ado, let's hop into this interview with Jeff. All right, Jeff, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. You reached out, you sent me an email and said some things in there that I've just been really excited to talk to you ever since that. And so I'm really excited to get to hear your story here a little bit. We don't have any agenda, just anything you want to share about your collecting journey, who you are that you think the collectors will enjoy hearing about. So I'll let you introduce yourself and take the floor.
Yeah, Brian, thanks for having me on your show. I've watched it a time or two. I really enjoy it, and I'm honored to be on your show. So I started collecting when I was 5 years old, or 4 years old, so 1965.
Wow.
And my mom worked at a store, and to entertain me, she used to give me comic books. Well, little did she know that I was going to get hooked. And I started reading probably right around FF 44, and Marvel's Collector's Items Classic #1 got me hooked on back issues. And then when I was a little boy, starting about age 7, they had me putting the new comics on the rack. So I take the old rack comics, put them in a drawer, snip the bundle, right? Snip the wires, take off the newspaper, and I was holding stacks of brand new high grade Silver Age Marvel in my hands. I can
Wow.
remember holding a whole stack of Silver Surfer #1s, putting them on the rack, and actually taking one to read and one for safekeeping when I was 7.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how I knew to do that instinctually, but I just did. And so I did that job through high school. So I would have, at one time put up a whole stack of Hulk 181s, right?
Wow.
And
But let me ask you a question about that, because I've always wondered about this, and I knew that they distributed with them strapped like that. So
yeah,
for people that, just to get an idea of like how hard it would be to get a 9.8 Silver Age book. I mean, are you talking like the top and the bottom copies and the side like there's no chance at a 9.8 on those, right? Because the
no.
strap is bending the books.
Top and the bottom especially,
Yeah.
they're pretty taut. And so when you snipped it with the wire snipper, they would just spring back. And so then you'd open up take the newspaper off, but those top, especially the top book and the bottom book, had the imprint, and you've probably seen it on comics where that imprint is going across.
Right.
And maybe you got to get down to like the third issue before you don't see anything. So depending on what's in top. So the stack would probably be about a foot and a half tall, and maybe 5 issues of every book in that pile, all the new books from all the different publishers. So if you were inside the stack, not in the top or bottom couple of issues, it's possible to get a 9.8, but
Yeah.
the outer issues, top and bottom, no way.
Not to mention that the people shipping them to you aren't treating them as collectibles. They're treating them as
Oh no.
periodicals, things to be read. And the people
Yeah,
putting them on the
it's
shelf, they're to be read. So it
it's worth
just,
12 cents, right? Yeah.
yeah, it just gives you a real appreciation for those super high grade Silver Age books.
Exactly. So I started collecting, and there's been times I've slowed down, but I've really never come to the point where I didn't collect. And so I've been able to watch the hobby just evolve and change through the years. Reading the price guide was always a big deal when that came out, to see how much your collection was worth. So when you're a little kid, oh, my this comic is now worth $10 more. And we were lucky in Rockford, Illinois, where I grew up. They had a comic store in 1965, a back issue store full of vintage timelies and ECs and everything you would think you would see in 1965. So that was one of the first in the country. And then we opened up another one in our city in the late 60s. And my dad bought me a Spider-Man 1 for $20.
Wow.
And so then once I got the Spidey one, I was really hooked. Then once I got my career and built my house, then I really began to get serious with my collection and go after, pedigree books. I was really fortunate, right place, right time. You've heard of the Curator collection?
I have, yeah. Well, I
Yeah,
see it on GPA every, I
yeah,
live in GPA, so I'll see it in there as curator copy, or
Yeah, so I think it's the best Silver Age collection ever found. I think it's better than Pacific Coast. But the problem is one person owns the lion's share of them, so they really don't come up for sale that much. But a man by the name of John Hauser found the collection, and I was fortunate enough to buy the Amazing Fantasy 15, the Spider-Man 3, could have bought the Spider-Man 1, could have bought the Sergeant Fury 1. So I bought the Fantasy 15 and bought the X-Men 1 and the Daredevil 1. So this is the raw copy of
God.
the Curator X-Men 1. So this is one of the most famous books in the Silver Age because it's graded 9.8 with white pages.
This is a photocopy of it.
Yeah, I took it down to the photocopying place and took a photocopy of it just to have it. But when I bought it, there was no CGC, no movies, but it was understood at the time I bought it to be the best copy in the world. So the first one I actually submitted to CGC once they came into Daredevil was the Daredevil one, and they had never heard of the Curator collection, so I had to work with Steve Borak to get it certified as the Curator collection. And all he had to do was call John Hauser and verify it, and then my friend who'd bought the lion's share, and then I was able to get Curator on the label. So the Daredevil one, which is a 9.6, became the first ever certified curator. And then, of course, once that happened, the guy who owns the lion's share took his whole collection down to get recertified.
You drop in a lot of nuggets here, and a lot of people watching this are going to be really interested to learn some of these things because I could tell already you are a treasure trove of historical information about the hobby. Okay, so first thing, Steve Borak, he started with CGC, then went to CBCS. Correct? Is he now retired?
He might have gone to Heritage before CBCS, and then he went to CBCS, then Lone Star, and now he's with Comic Link.
Okay, that's right. With my comic shop.
Yeah, he was in Texas with Lone Star. Now he's with Comic Link and Josh Nathanson. Those two go way back to when Josh was a kid, the owner of Comic Link. And so I met Steve and became friends with Steve when the company started. But now he's in Florida where he can be close to his daughter and his grandchildren. And he's pretty happy at Comic Link.
Right. So not only, did you start collecting in the one of the greatest times in collecting, but you're connected with some of the most influential people in our hobby. I'm
Right.
just kind of setting the stage here because I could tell, I hope I figure out the right questions to ask you because I know there's just stuff in there that people are
Hey,
just
man,
going to love to hear about.
we can
One other
always do
thing I
it
wanted to
again.
ask, a little nugget you dropped was you dropped Sergeant Fury 1 in the same
Yeah.
sentence as Amazing Fantasy 15. Can you explain that a little bit? What back then was Sergeant Fury 1 similar in price to some of these other grails that we're seeing today?
Sergeant Fury #1 was that not that desirable of a book in
Okay.
1992 among silver because we didn't consider him a superhero at that point. Now, Strange Tales 135, he's a superhero, but I just told John I don't collect Sergeant Fury.
Okay.
That book graded a 9.4, and that's a really tough book. So if I could have that decision back, I would take that back. The Spider-Man 1 curator was offered to me, and I said, give me a couple minutes to think about it. And I took maybe 5 minutes, called him back, and I said, I'll take it. And then my friend had already changed his mind, who had first shot at it and bought it. So and that's life, right? So he had
Right.
he had the 9.8, or he has the 9.8 still. And then the curator was a 9.6. But I think the last time I saw it, the curator got bumped to a 9.8. So I was like,
For Superman 1?
for Spider-Man 1.
Spider-Man 1. Oh, okay. You were talking about Spider-Man 1. Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the curator Spider-Man 1, I should have had. Speaking of Superman 1, this is not Superman number 1, but once I get this graded, that's the nicest copy in the world.
Oh my
This
God.
is the near
That's one
mint
of the most
unrestored.
difficult, one of the most difficult
Yeah.
Supermans because of the black cover.
The Fred Ray. I just love this book. It's immaculate.
That is that from the same collection?
No,
No,
I found this, believe it or not, in the wild, ungraded.
wow.
Yeah,
So
I
the
couldn't believe
curator
it.
collection was just Marvel. Is that correct?
Curator collection, no, it was DC. It was Gold Key. I believe some Dell. I know the Space Ghost was a nine. Space Ghost 1 is a 9.8. I've got a friend who's got the Showcase 55. It's a 9.6. So it spanned, but it did complete the Marvel run. He, interestingly enough, the man who owned the curators sold them to get a sex change operation. And he was like a curator, and he was using the money from the collection for that purpose. And he stored these books in cubicles of 5 comics and stacked them, and they hadn't seen the light of day since the 60s. So they were like in a kind of a chilly, dark room for 40 years.
Uh,
And that's why they're so immaculate.
Incredible. Just yeah, it gives you goosebumps, chills to think
Yeah.
about.
I got some stuff here. I don't know if you want to see it or ask me more questions or what, but
Let's see some stuff. Yeah, let's see
yeah,
some
see some
stuff.
stuff. One of the things I like to do is collect pedigrees. This just happens to be one of my favorite books. This is the mass copy of Avengers 2, 9.6. Now we got
Super, super tough book with the all
yeah,
yellow.
Mile High. So when I saw this, I thought it was a reprint or something, and then found out it was a Mile High. So, you got to have a Mile High in your collection, right? It's incredible.
Do you have any connection with the Mile High pedigree? Any experience with those books when they were raw or
I didn't really care for Golden Age back then. I was, until about 10 years ago, I was strictly Silver Age Marvel. And then I began to expand once I saw, hey, I'm going to get this Marvel collection done, I began to pursue other artists, other titles and things like that. So I could have had access to those. When I started going to conventions, there'd be 3 or 4 Action Ones in the room. You'd see Captain America ones, Detective 27s. I wouldn't say prevalent, but they were present at the big shows. And it just wasn't my thing. I was a Marvel guy.
yeah.
But about 10 years ago or so, maybe 12, I started to collect other artists, other genres, other companies. Like, this is one of my favorite books, Frazetta, Famous Funnies. He's just one of the greatest artists of all time. This is
Yeah.
the best copy in the world.
Wow.
So you got the first sci-fi hero, Buck Rogers, by arguably the best sci-fi artist. Um,
Unbelievable.
so I love that book. I love Mac Raboy. So I'm really close to finishing. I think I got 2 more, and then I'll have all the master comics. But Mac Raboy was just incredible as to what he could do, the way he could draw faces and the detail. This is one of my grails too.
Oh wow.
The good girl art, Will Eisner, and then having it in white pages is really hard to accomplish.
Yeah.
So I love that book. I didn't know what to bring, so I just brought some random stuff. I
You're
love
doing
Human
pretty
Torch,
good.
or I love World War II covers. So I've got a lot of those in my collection. This is the last World War II cover in Torch. So
Okay, couple things real quick from
yeah,
those couple books. Page quality and old cases. I'm curious as somebody with a collection and taste like yours. For page quality, how important is it to you for the integrity of the book when you're talking about, these mega grails? Do you consider the degradation of the paper, and do you consider like the long like, okay, I'm going to buy this book, it's got tan pages or slightly brittle pages. Maybe I shouldn't spend 40, $50,000 on this because in 20 years it's going to degrade in the case. Do you think about that? You consider it?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I want white or off-white. That's the one that's going to hold its value the longest. That's the one that's going to preserve the longest. Maybe there's a book you want really bad, and white copies or high grade copies don't exist, right?
Right.
And so you have to buy what you can get. I've got one here. This is a high grade copy, Matt Baker,
Right.
7C. It's high grade, but it's not as high grade as I normally like. But good luck finding one, right?
Right. I've had several raw book collections come through with all number of 7Cs. There might be 27C books in there, but not issue number 4. It's
The
like
four.
there's 3 and 5, but why? Why?
Yeah, yeah,
And
no,
it
it's so
and it's
true.
not like it was picked through. It's not like it was picked through. This was like something that was, kept like that. So real quick though, the old style CGC cases, does it bother you at all? Do you care?
No, I think the reputation is they were stricter back when they started. I don't know if that's true or not, but right now I think the old cases bring a little bit of a premium, right? You can say it's old label, but really I'm looking at the book and not so much the label, whether it's
Right.
old label, new label. I'm just looking at the book.
Would you like to see a different option for a case? I've always thought that you should be able to buy a $500 case, a UV protected museum quality, something that's
Oh,
they're
wow.
putting
Yeah.
they're putting the same, $1 million book in a 50-cent piece of plastic that they put a,
Wow.
$3 brand new release in. It's
We'll have to talk to Matt about that.
Yeah, that's
That's
crazy to me. It's like I would gladly spend, a couple $100 to get something that I don't have to crack open every 20,
right,
30
right.
years. Cut it out,
May,
and
Hey, maybe those fortresses were the best solution after all, right? Started collecting Golden Age and really started to like Alex Schomburg, obviously, is just incredible. So I started going after Schomburg books. What are some other things I could show you? This sometimes I go after storylines like, this is a great storyline. This I know is a 9.8 if I grade it. It's perfect. And so the 48, 49, and 50, this is where I started in the hobby. And so
yeah.
I love those books. This one is
Man, yeah.
cool.
So you started at FF 44, and then four
Yeah,
months later, Silver Surfer number one. I mean,
yeah,
I'm sure
yeah,
your mind is just no wonder you're hooked. You started
yeah,
with the first appearance, and you're going, "Oh my God, look at this character,
yeah.
Silver Surfer!" And then what they did with the character. Did you follow the character development, or were you too young at that point? Did you have to come
I
back
was
to it?
pretty young, but I would listen to the Golden Record reprints where you could scroll through the book and listen to the record. And so I knew what was going on with the characters. And then, by the time I'm in second grade, you can read or whatever that is. And then you can go back and reread. But Spider-Man, I think, was the character that got me hooked just because teenager, got an Aunt May, got to do his homework. He's funny. So he was my favorite character. And
Yeah,
I
mine
watched
too.
him
I
closely. Yeah.
I'm definitely a hardcore Spidey fan.
Yeah, my eBay moniker is the Amazing Spider Fan. This one is important because this is from the Fantast collection.
Okay,
I mentioned that there's a documentary out right now called Selling Superman
right.
that I'm in. And Derek Watts is a friend of mine, and he is just a tremendous, tremendous man. Darren Watts, sorry. Darren Watts inherited a $30 million collection from his father, and they made a documentary by a wonderful movie maker, Adam Schomer, that is not only a story of our industry, but just about his family and about the trials and tribulations they went through. Very heart touching, very well made. If I could plug that for a second, because
Absolutely.
it's about our industry. It's on Apple TV or Amazon Prime. It's a four-part series and it's available now to stream. I'm in episode 3 and a little bit in episode 4, but it's very well done and you'll recognize probably some faces that are in it. I remember when I was having dinner with a dealer named Harley E. And Harley and I were having dinner at a show. And he says, "Hey, a man came by and he says he's got a Superman one and a Batman one." It's like, yeah, right. And he says he's got a full Superman run. And I just said, "Well, if that's ever the case, give me a call." And 6 months later, he said, "Yeah, it's the real thing, and you need to come." And so I went down to his warehouse and couldn't believe what I saw. This collection, I don't know, was it maybe 300,000 books? We had a Superman run. He had, Fantasy 15, FF1, Batman one, which Heritage sold. But I think if you're a comic collector, you got to see Selling Superman. I
Okay.
think you'd really
So
enjoy it.
I'll be honest, when I saw the trailers and stuff, this is my career, and for some reason I just have held off on watching it. I wasn't sure how it was gonna sit with me, but you think as somebody who, this is a very important hobby and industry for you, you think it serves our industry well and it's a good representation of the hobby
Absolutely.
or
And I think the whole family would enjoy it. I think, um, your wife, if you have children, I think it's something everybody would benefit from watching. And it
okay.
goes down different side trails and stuff, but it's about family, not just about comics, and it's well done. One of the things I like to do is just go hunting for books, right? And take off on trips, and I'll have a destination, but I'll also go off on some side roads and try to find obscure shops and holes in the wall. And you just never know what you're going to find in one of those stores. And one of my friend's stores actually, I found this one. Have you heard of those backpacks that they had in the 60s where they have like four DC comics in an unopened pack,
Yeah.
in a big Batman comic? A friend of mine picked this up at his store, an unopened backpack from the 60s. And when I saw it, I couldn't believe it because these books have never been touched by human hands.
Is it a
Uh,
227? Are you gonna pull out a 227?
well, first Poison
Okay.
Ivy. Never been touched.
Is that still
I,
in the pack?
Still in the pack. I've never opened it.
So is there other books in there?
Yeah, I think there's a JLA 41 and
You don't
World's
know?
Finest.
Oh,
I've
okay.
never opened it. The two in the middle, I think it's an X-Men 41 and the Metalman, I don't know.
You prefer that to stay in the pack than open it?
Yeah, I think if I ever decided to sell it, it would probably make sense to open it
No.
because I know a 9.6 of that book's pretty expensive.
Yeah,
So,
like
but
probably
but
$20,000, $30,000.
something, yeah. This is a fun one. This is Jack Kirby dipping his toes in science fiction.
Okay.
So
Wow.
this had to be
Yeah.
one of his earliest attempts. And I don't think this book gets the love that it should, but seeing Kirby do sci-fi, I really couldn't find an earlier one than this. So I mean, like, think about Fourth World and everything that came out of Kirby's imagination. And this is kind of where it all started. And I really think this book should get more love. I just think it's so rare that there's just not that many copies
Yeah,
out
and they're
there.
so nice that they really do look like reprints or something that you're holding up, but they're just
Yeah, it's like a
really high grade.
9.4.
You did a lot of buying in the 90s, is that correct? You
Yeah.
talked about being in this hobby for so long and watching the implementation of CGC, watching how the hobby has changed. Any thoughts on that? That whole arc right there of, CGC coming into the picture or just watching the hobby evolve over time in general.
Well, it's been good for the hobby, right? Because prior to that, you could never tell if a book was restored or not. And you would debate somebody on the grade. This is not an Ehrman book, not even close. And so CGC helped to settle those disputes, right? And tells you if it's universal or not and gives you a grade. And it's a third party grading service. But then also it just showed us the scarcity. I had no idea when I got the X-Men #1, 9.8, that all these years later, there'd only be two on the census, right? So, and the Pacific Coast was owned by another friend of mine that started off life as a 9.6. So, really, how rare that curator X-Men #1 is. So, the census enabled us to know that. And then, it sparked an interest in the hobby, gave an established marketplace where we could track sales and really put us, I think, as a valid hobby. Like it's a valid place to place your money
Right.
because you can see a sustained market, sustained sales. You can track the up and down just like you would a stock market, right? Now,
Right.
the sad thing is becomes a commodity. You
Right.
can't read it anymore. But the way I deal with that is I just get a low grade copy, right?
Right.
Just
Right.
get a lousy copy, and that way you can still read it. So
Absolutely.
it's
I
been
mean, yeah,
good.
I think it's
It's
just
been good.
incredibly short-sighted whenever anybody criticizes it or says like we don't need it. It's kind of like I was gonna say it's kind of like defund the police. It just doesn't make any sense. It's like we need them, and it's so obvious why. All of the reasons that you just mentioned, and yeah, I mean, like literally every possible objection, like, oh, you can't read it anymore. Facsimiles, low grade copies. Yes, you can, so
Yeah.
anyways,
They're
yeah,
probably angry
anything.
because they've missed out on money. They know they left money on the table, so
Right.
maybe a little
And now
hostility
that
there.
it's a commodity, like you said, and the price is through the roof, like, yeah, you can't, most people aren't ever going to be able to buy a Superman one anymore. Whereas before,
Right.
you bicker with someone about the grade and it's restored or not, and you can buy it at a convention, for, a couple
Hmm.
$1,000. So yeah, I think that is a big part of it. The biggest, the old school, the old guard people that are against CGC just miss the golden days when you could go buy these grails that are now just completely out of reach. So anything else you want to share? I mean, you reached out to me. What made you reach out to me to want to come on the show? Like what would you like
You
to
had made
share?
in one of your shows, you just made an invitation. You'd said something about interviewing. It sounded like you were looking for people to talk to. And so I just said, I like this show and I'll just send you an email and see if you're interested. So I don't do interviews really.
Yeah.
I've been asked before many times, but I've always declined. And I thought, well, now since I'm out in the public a little bit with this selling Superman, I might as well do a little bit. But I've always
Yeah.
declined them up to this point.
Well, I really hope that I didn't drop the ball and like just not, come prepared enough, because I feel like there's so much that you have to share. And so if you think of anything else, you're welcome to come on anytime. You want to
Okay.
show some more books, we can do this anytime. Everyone watching this right now, if they made it this point in the video, is just dying for more because like everything that you've said and showed is like, oh my God, that is like stuff that
I
we
didn't
never
know
get
what
to see.
I didn't know what to bring, but
Yeah. Do you enjoy connecting with people in the hobby? Do you enjoy that part of it? Like, do you have a social circle with comics? What I'm getting at is if you want to, make a plug on how people can contact you.
yeah, I'm pretty private. I have a lot of friends in the hobby, obviously. And when I go to shows, we go out to eat and we talk and we text all year round. You mentioned
Right.
Steve. I have dinner with him every year, once, twice a year. But many of the guys in the hobby I'm friends with. I don't do Facebook or
Yeah.
social media at all. It's a little bit tough. I think I'm a pastor at church called Faith Community Church
Okay.
in Janesville, Wisconsin. And so they can email me through that.
Let me ask you something about that. We got 3.5 minutes because it's always been something that's been interesting to me as far as faith and comics. How do you see that? Do you see? I mean, you see like the pre-code stuff and there's some really dark stuff. Even the superhero stuff, though. I mean, does superhero stuff conflict at all with faith-based stuff?
For me, they don't. It's just part of our culture, right? I've enjoyed like I've got a pre-code horror here. This Harry Anderson art. I was big into horror and sci-fi when I was a kid, so maybe I get a little numb to it. I mean, the pre-code horror, some of that's gruesome. I agree. Would I want my kid reading it? Probably not. Does it offend me? I mean, there's a couple books in my collection my wife doesn't like. Like when I showed her my Fight Against Crime 20 decap cover, and she's
Yeah.
like, "You got to sell that. You got to sell that." And when I was kind of desensitized to it, you
I
know,
think I think what it comes down to for me is intent, and if I mean anything can be misused. You can
yeah.
misuse, a cell phone. You can misuse literally anything. And so yes, you can misuse superhero and that could conflict with your faith. But if it's, properly categorized in your life, I'm not saying it right, it's not a problem. So it's just something that's always been interesting to me. I don't know that I've ever met a pastor that was a collector, and so but it's something that was
Yeah.
in the back of my mind. So I'm glad I
Well,
got
I
to ask
think
you.
I agree. I talk about intent with our congregation all the time. Intent is everything, right? I 100% agree with you. I think the main thing about this hobby is just have fun. Whether you're going after a genre or a run or a favorite artist or a cool cover, just have fun with it, and don't worry about how much is this worth or can I make money on this. Collect what you enjoy collecting, and the hobby will give back to you if you do that.
I can't think of a better way to end it. We got 30 seconds left. That is it in a nutshell. Thank you so much, Jeff, for coming on. I
Hey,
can't wait to
brother.
do this again. I really hope we get
Yeah.
to do this again.
Hope so too. What a joy to meet you and spend some time with you, and wish all the best with your audience as well.
So there you guys have it. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Once again, leave a comment down below with some questions you'd like to ask, and hopefully we can get Jeff to come back on. Thank you, as always, for sticking with me to the end of the video. Don't forget those giveaways here on the YouTube channel. Subscribe, comment, and like. And if you head over to brycecomics.com, you can check out all the new inventory. Use code COLLECT10 for 10% off. You sign up for the newsletter, enter to win a free slab while you're there. Thanks again for sticking with me to the end. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye.